Welcome back, everybody. And as you see in the title of today's episode, evidently, WWE Raw decided not to have any women's matches, no segments unless you were watching with a VPN. And we all know if AEW did this, Twitter would be exploding right now. So, little feedback. Back on May 5th, I wrote a blog on where are all the we want more women's matches voices, selective outrage, fan discourse, and gender politics in professional wrestling. Um, Go read the blog. You will thoroughly enjoy it. But I bitched about this on May 5th, and I am no fan of women's wrestling, but I do have to say I need consistency. If you're going to bitch about one, then you need to bitch about the other. So, let's get into today's podcast, which wasn't going to be today's podcast. It was going to be something different. So, welcome back, everybody. And today, I'm asking a question that somehow isn't trending, isn't dominating social media, and apparently isn't important enough for the wrestling discourse to spend more than, I don't know, 3 minutes discussing. That is, where is the outrage? Seriously. So, Monday Night Raw, July 20th, gave us over 2 hours of wrestling. We got to see Seth, Solo Sokoa, Jacob Fatu, LA Knight, Braun Breaker, my favorite Austin Theory, Chad Gable, Danhausen, even Joe Henry, even Bloodline drama, a little bit of SummerSlam hype, if that's what you'd like to call it. But you know what you did not get? You got zero. Let me repeat, zero, 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 not one, not two, zero women's matches. Zero, again, in-ring women's segments. You had not one promo dedicated to advancing the women's division, unless, again, you watch with a VPN. And while VPN watchers got to see Sol Ruka drop a promo, Lyra Valkyria come out, or as I like to call her, Bird Flu. The other people were getting commercials. So for them, no women's promos, matches, anything on their television. We got nothing, zero, zip, nada. And, here's the part that's really driving me insane. Oh my god, if AEW had aired Dynamite with zero women's matches and no meaningful women's segments, the internet would have caught fire before Excalibur could finish saying it's Wednesday night. People would be demanding Tony Khan explain himself, saying he hates women. There would be YouTube videos coming out your ass about this stuff. We would have podcast galore, think pieces, 27 Twitter threads, a whole dissertation. I would have 3 Reddit mega threads, and at least maybe 5 wrestlers subtweeting. Someone would somehow blame, I don't know, time management. Hell, they would probably even blame CM Punk and he's no longer with AEW. But yeah, as we've discussed before, that's just wrestling discourse. Yet WWE does it. Silence. And it's deafening. I hear nothing. Even some WWE focus reviewers who praise the show acknowledge the complete lack of focus on the women's division, especially heading into your biggest pay-per-view of the summer, SummerSlam. Summer fraud, as some would like to call it. But the issue has never become the dominant conversation. So today, I'm going to talk about why that is. So this isn't about a WWE versus AEW. Before any of you start typing, oh, here comes the AEW fangirl. No, this isn't about defending AEW. It isn't about attacking WWE. It's about my new favorite word in wrestling, consistency. I have talked about this 2 weeks in a row on my podcast, Lipsticks and Lariats. So, if you want to hear it, go subscribe to the Weekly Steel Chair channel, who is the home for that podcast. Okay, if something is bad, yes, it's bad. If something deserves criticism, it deserves criticism. Whether Triple H books it, whether Tony Khan books it, whether Shawn Michaels books it, whether Joe Blow down the street books it. Standards should not change because your favorite billionaire signs the paychecks. So let's look at what happened. The show featured Seth Rollins, Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, LA Knight, Chad Gable, Penta, Joe Henry, who still doesn't get an entrance unless you watch with a VPN, Dominic Mysterio, Braun Breaker, Austin Theory, Danhausen, and the Usos. Yes, Jay is back. So basically, every major men's storyline got attention. Every single one. Meanwhile, the women's division, well, it's invisible. So reports after the show noted that talent such as Lyra Valkyria, Sol Ruca, Roxanne Perez, and Raquel Rodriguez were only seen during commercial break content that most U.S. viewers did not see. You had a brief moment of Io Sky and Liv Morgan, but it was connected to the men's storyline rather than their own program, so you really wouldn't know they were fighting for Liv's title for SummerSlam. And there were no women's matches on this televised broadcast. Yes, you heard me. And I'm not going to repeat it. There was no women's intercontinental championship match. She didn't appear on TV. No vignette, no nothing. I mean, you didn't even get her for 60 seconds. And, that's remarkable considering SummerSlam is just around the corner. So let's imagine if the roles reverse. Let's play a game. Imagine Dynamite opening segment mid. Next segment mid. Third segment mid. Fourth segment mid. Main event mid. Okay, now I wouldn't be mad if all these segments had Omega in them, but it's okay. But you get where I'm going. But women's matches? Oh no. Women's promo? Definitely not. Women's backstage interviews? None. The only woman you may have seen would be Renee Paquette doing an interview with a man. So, how long would it take before someone tweeted, Tony Khan hates women's wrestling? Oh, I give you about 5 seconds, maybe less. Someone would already have a 4-minute YouTube short uploaded before the opening pyro had finished. Now, to be fair, AEW has absolutely earned criticism over the years. Early Dynamite often featured just one women's match. Sometimes the match got 8 minutes, sometimes it got less. Sometimes the division disappeared for weeks, and we fans criticized it, media criticized it, former wrestlers criticized it, current wrestlers criticized it. The people demanded better, and guess what? It was justified criticism. Constructive criticism helped push AEW toward improving its women's division over time. So now, why does WWE seem to receive a different level of scrutiny for the same issue? That's the real question that I have yet to have a justified answer for. Does WWE have an incredible women's roster? Well, not compared to AEW, in my opinion, but it does have a decent roster. This isn't 2010. This isn't the Divas era. We don't have Kelly versus a pillow. So WWE has assembled a pretty deep roster. Io Sky, Liv Morgan, Roxanne, Sol Ruca, Lyra Valkyria, aka Bird Flu, Bailey, aka Maybe Leaving, Raquel Rodriguez, Stephanie Vakir, aka Missing in Action, Tiffany Stratus, Rhea Ripley, aka Injured, Bianca, aka Injured, Jade Cargill, aka Needs to Learn to Wrestle Better, Charlotte Flair, and Alexa Bliss. That's some absurd talent. And almost any combination of those names could headline a television show. Instead, on the July 20th edition of Raw, nothing. Zero, nada, no women's matches. None. So, but the show was good. I've already heard this defense. The show flowed well. It was entertaining. It advanced SummerSlam. Sure. I was bored out of my fucking mind. Was it entertaining? Maybe. If you were into Danhausen, who had like 20,000 segments on this show, who is getting pushed down your throat, I'm all for some comedy in wrestling. This was a little much for Danhausen. A little too much Danhausen. But the Glory Bloodline story continues to be compelling. Yeah, 4 years ago, Jacob Fatu looked like a monster. He sure did after he took a kick to the face by Seth Rollins. LA Knight stayed over? Yeah, by taking another loss. Where's that big LA Knight push? Yeah, it's flushed down the toilet. Rollins kept fan guessing at what? The show was kind of bad. But the most important thing was that there are two different conversations. There were no women's matches, and there's no discourse about it. But if AEW had done this, oh my lord, my Twitter would have been blowing up last night. I would have woke up to more Twitter blowing up. So why am I not seeing the same consistency with WWE? So we all hear those fans that say, we want more women's wrestling. So where are you now? I'm deafening silence. Can't hear you. I have very good hearing. Still can't hear you. So, and I know some fans hear the word representation and immediately roll their eyes. This isn't political, it's practical. Professional wrestling works because audiences become emotionally invested in multiple stories at once. Yes. Hey, WWE, take note. You can push more than one person at a time. Just FYI. So, if half your roster disappears for an entire night, fans will gradually stop being invested in them. Guess what? That's how momentum dies. And then guess what? Then you try to build them up, and the fans are not interested. That's how your championship loses prestige. That's why no one cares about the Women's Intercontinental Championship. That's why no one really cares about the Women's United States Championships or the WWE Women's Championship or the Women's World Championship. Because you ain't had these bitches wrestling. If they are hurt, they need to be stripped. There is no reason you should have waited this damn long to strip Rhea of this title. And now we're getting an interim? Oh my lord. What's that gonna do? Absolutely nothing. But back to the topic at hand, before I derail any further. That's how divisions become afterthoughts. Television time equals relevance. No television time means no relevance. So, is that what WWE is telling us after our Monday Night Raw episode on July 20th? That the women have no relevance in professional wrestling? Huh, could be a topic for another day. So, what has really confused me? Well, we got SummerSlam in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. That's the time that every championship should matter, women's and men's. Every rivalry should be heating up. Every championship should be reminding viewers why they're important. Instead, yeah, your women, they essentially disappeared from Raw's television presentation last night. Strange creative choice, especially when WWE has invested heavily in presenting its women division as equal to the men's over the past decade and claiming they have the best women's division in the world, aka that's a lie. Their stardom. All right. Let's talk about another uncomfortable truth, and I'm sure the pitchforks will be after me, but okay. Triple H has earned enormous goodwill, some deserved, some not. Fans generally trust his creative division. Maybe. And if you do, well, I guess that's a good thing for you. But goodwill shouldn't eliminate accountability. And sometimes good bookers, well, they make bad decisions. In this case, looks like Triple H, you've been making a lot of bad decisions for like a year and a half now. Sometimes, great shows do have weak spots. Well, not having women's matches, I would have to say, this was probably one of them. Just saying, don't know, just my opinion from someone who hates women's wrestling. So, I am going to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to talk about the lack of media reaction. So, stay tuned. Okie dokie. I'm back. I know you missed me. So, part two, media double standards, fan tribalism, and why consistency matters. And that's my favorite word again, consistency. Let's talk about wrestling media. Well, it is fascinating. One day they'll spend 30 minutes debating whether someone looked at another wrestler the wrong way backstage. The next day, an entire division disappears from a 2.5 hour television show, and somehow it barely cracks the headlines. Now, to be fair, some reviewers absolutely did mention it. Several outlets and reviewers noted that Raw featured no women's matches and questioned why the division received no meaningful television time, especially with your biggest pay per view of the summer approaching. But notice what happened next? Yeah, that discussion, it kind of moved on like the train going down the track. It never became the story. Now imagine if Dynamite ended without a women's match. Oh my gosh. You would have reviewers simply say, yeah, that happened, and then spend the next 25 minutes talking about the men's main event. Yeah, absolutely not. The headline would be Tony Khan fails women's division again. The thumbnail would have Tony Khan looking confused. The title would be in bright red letters. There'd probably be an arrow pointing at nothing. Yeah, because that's YouTube. So here's the biggest problem in wrestling today. We've created two different scorecards. Fans don't judge promotions, they judge their favorite promotions, and those definitely are not the same thing. If WWE makes a mistake, many WWE fans immediately explain why it's not a mistake. If AEW makes the exact same mistake, those fans suddenly become experts on television formatting, roster utilization, and gender representation. Then the opposite happens on the AEW side. And AEW fans excuse AEW, criticizes WWE, rinse and repeat. We've stopped evaluating wrestling. We've started defending three letters, the brand. And yeah, that's kind of bad for everyone. All right. I know this may seem revolutionary online, but you can love WWE and still criticize WWE. You can love AEW and still criticize AEW. You can enjoy Raw and admit Raw has flaws. I know, it's a crazy concept. You can praise Triple H's long-term storytelling while saying, "Hey, maybe give one of your incredibly talented women 5 minutes." Those opinions, well, they can exist together. In fact, that's what balanced criticism would look like. So remember when WWE was the gold standard? Long time, huh? Well, let's rewind. For years, WWE proudly promoted the women's evolution, and rightfully so. The women main evented WrestleMania. They competed in a hell of in a cell, Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, War Games, Elimination Chamber, Iron Survivor. Basically, if the men had a stipulation match, the women had the same one. The company broke barriers that generally deserved praise, and they got their praise. That's exactly why this episode felt so strange. When you've praised expectations, people should expect you to meet them. So, one defense I have seen is, well, maybe there wasn't room. Well, depth has never been the problem. Really? No room? This roster has some charismatic women in wrestling. So, I'm going to play fantasy booker for a second. You don't even need a match. How about a 2-minute backstage confrontation? A contract signing? A sit down interview? A video package? A vignette? A champion cutting a promo that you don't have to watch with a VPN? A number one contender making a statement? Literally, you could have had anything. Instead, we had nothing. So it isn't a lack of talent, it's a lack of booking decision. Oh, well, the men got time because they deserve it. And, well, so do the women not deserve it? Let's be clear, the men's roster work hard. You know, Roman belongs on TV when he shows up. Jacob belongs on TV. Braun definitely belongs on TV, and boy, can I go off on him. But I will not. Seth Rollins belongs on TV. I'm not arguing that otherwise. This isn't a zero-sum game. Nobody says, well, take Roman off TV forever. Well, maybe some of us are. But people are saying maybe don't erase an entire division. Those are two very different arguments. So if you want the fans to care, then give us something to care about. Here is one of the oldest rules in wrestling. Fans care about what the promoter tells them matters. If commentary consistently discusses a championship, then fans care. If television dedicates time to a rivalry, fans care. If a wrestler appears every week, fans begin to care and get invested. If someone disappears for weeks, well, guess what? The fans are going to stop caring and they're going to stop being invested. Then promoters wonder why reactions get quieter. Because audience follows the cues we are given. Well, I heard another defense, which, kind of is my favorite. They're saving them for SummerSlam. Okay. I'm going to examine that. How do you build excitement? Without showing people? Imagine promoting the new Avengers Doomsday without the trailer dropping yesterday and getting everybody excited. And, I went to go buy tickets yesterday and every showing at my AMC theater was sold out before I could even get in to get tickets at, I don't know, 10 o'clock in the morning. Imagine promoting WrestleMania without, mentioning your top stars. Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins. Imagine promoting the Super Bowl without showing either quarterback from each team in the Super Bowl. Promotion creates anticipation. Silence, it creates nothing. Well, social media has a memory, and there are fools that will go back and hunt down social media posts from 10 years ago. Except when it doesn't in this case. And one thing wrestling fans love saying is, we just want consistency. But do we? Really? Because consistency would mean criticizing every promotion equally. Yes, you heard me right. Consistency means acknowledging good booking regardless of the company. You heard me right. Consistency means pointing out bad booking regardless of the company. Yes, you heard me right. But instead, everything gets filtered through logos. Blue logo, good. Black and gold logo, bad. Vice versa, depending on who you ask. That's not criticism, that's fandom. So, why does this happen? Let's get psychological for a second. Fans invest emotionally, not just in wrestlers, in the companies. People identify themselves as, I'm a WWE fan, I'm an AEW fan, I'm a New Japan fan. Once identity enters the conversation, objectivity leaves because criticism starts feeling personal. If someone criticizes WWE, some fans hear, they're criticizing me. No, they're not. They're criticizing creative. Those are different things. This isn't about quotas. So, every time this conversation comes up, someone inevitably says, so now every show has to have exactly 50% women? No, nobody seriously is arguing that point. Some weeks a show will naturally lean in one direction, which is fine, that's television. But eliminating an entire division from the flagship program, your A program, that's different, especially when you're promoting one of the biggest pay per view events of the year. And yes, women have earned better. Let's think about the work the women have put in. Years ago, people said women couldn't headline. Well, they proved them wrong. People said women couldn't wrestle long matches. Again, proven wrong. People said fans wouldn't care. Again, somewhat proven wrong. So why reward the progress by giving them nothing to do on one of the biggest weekly wrestling shows? Yeah, well, that's what doesn't make sense. Accountability helps. Criticism isn't hate. Constructive criticism makes companies better. Remember when fans complained about the AEW women's division? Well, over time, Tony Khan gradually gave the division more television time, longer matches, stronger stories, and eventually major programs like Timeless Tony Storm, Mercedes Monet, Mariah May, and others that became central attractions. Fans complained, the company adjusted. That's healthy. WWE deserves that same honest feedback. Not because WWE is failing, because WWE is capable of better. Maybe. One thing I never want to see happen is lowering expectations. So, why did you lower your standards? You spent years telling us the women's division is revolutionary. Great. Then hold yourselves to revolutionary standards. Not, well, maybe next week. No, this week mattered. This episode mattered. This opportunity mattered. And guess what? Because television is how stars stay relevant, you're telling us women don't matter. So, I will be back for segment 3, and we will talk about double standards and why wrestling fans need to pick a lane. Okay, now before somebody clips 15 seconds of the podcast and posts it with the caption, this person says Triple H hates women's wrestling. That's not what I said. That isn't what I'm saying. One episode does not define an entire company. One episode doesn't erase years of progress. One episode doesn't suddenly undo the women's evolution. One episode doesn't erase WrestleMania main events. It doesn't erase Rhea Ripley becoming WWE's biggest women's star. It doesn't erase Bianca Belair carrying the company before she got injured. Can we be adults and have a serious conversation? It isn't about declaring WWE being anti women because of one Monday Night Raw. This is about asking a very reasonable question. Why wasn't this treated like a much bigger deal? Because history tells us that if another promotion had done the exact same thing, many of the loudest voices in wrestling media and on social media would have reacted much, much differently. Alright, another argument I've seen, it was just 1 week. It was only one episode. Okay, fair enough, but let me ask you something. When AEW had an off week with its women's division a few years ago, did people say, Relax, it's only one episode. No, they used it as evidence of a larger problem. Again, sometimes that criticism was deserved. AEW absolutely has stretches where its women's division lacked television time and meaningful stories. But notice the standard. When AEW stumbled, many fans and media members treated it like a symptom. When WWE stumbled here, a lot of people treat it like a scheduling quirk. That's the inconsistency I'm talking about. So, has Triple H earned goodwill but not immunity? So, Triple H has built WWE's creative reputation. Has he produced compelling long term stories? Has he elevated talent? Has he made championships feel important? Has he restored prestige to premium pay per views? If so, then yes, he deserves praise. If not, well, guess what? He deserves criticism. But earning praise doesn't mean becoming immune from criticism. If anything, higher expectations should lead to higher standards. Think about sports. When the Kansas City Chiefs lose a game because of sloppy execution, analysts don't say, well, they're usually good, so let's ignore it. No, they say, this team is too talented to make those mistakes. That's exactly where WWE is. The roster is too talented for an entire division to disappear from television. So, let's appreciate what WWE has assembled. This isn't a roster that's struggling for talent. This isn't a roster where you're scrambling to fill time. This is a division loaded with stars, championship veterans, rising prospects, and future main eventers. You have established names who can cut compelling promos. You have athletes capable of delivering outstanding television matches. You have champions who should be featured every single week, especially when SummerSlam is right around the corner. If you handed this roster to almost any booker in wrestling history, they'd probably ask, wait, I get all these women? And that's why the silence feels so odd. And yes, here's another misconception. Some of the best stories don't require a match. Criticizing the lack of women's matches doesn't necessarily mean there had to be a 20-minute bout. Not every storyline advances inside the ring. Think about some of wrestling's greatest feuds. Many advance through face-to-face interviews, heated backstage confrontations, contract signings, video package, surprise interruptions, championship celebrations gone wrong, and parking lot ambushes. You could have advanced 2 or 3 women's stories in, I don't know, less than 10 minutes. Instead, the division was absent from the televised narrative. Yeah, that matters. If you are hollering, we need more women's wrestling. Well, here's one of my favorite observations about wrestling fans. Fans often become lawyers for their favorite company. The moment criticism appears, people stop becoming fans and become great defense attorneys. Suddenly, everyone has a closing argument. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client, World Wrestling Entertainment, is innocent because. Really? We're doing legal briefs now? Instead of asking whether the criticism has merit, fans immediately search for reasons to dismiss it. Imagine if we approached wrestling the way we approach movies. If your favorite director makes a bad film, you don't pretend it's secretly brilliant. You acknowledge the miss and hope the next project is stronger. Why can't wrestling be the same? Alright, we all know social media algorithms love outrage selectively. And here's another factor. Because social media rewards conflict, hot takes travel faster than measured analysis. But here's what's fascinating. The outrage machine doesn't activate equally. It depends on the logo, it depends on the fan base, depends on who's criticizing whom. If AEW books one women's match, someone will post, "See, Tony Khan doesn't care." If WWE books no women's matches, many of those same accounts suddenly pivot to, "Well, the show was really focused on SummerSlam." You see, those two reactions, they don't line up for me. The math ain't mathin', and you can't even make it math with Steiner math. This isn't about winning a fan war, and I've said this before, and I will keep saying it. I don't care about fan wars. Nobody wins them. If WWE improves, wrestling improves. If AEW improves, wrestling wins. If TNA improves, wrestling wins. New Japan improves, wrestling wins. If the independent wrestling grows, wrestling wins. The fans benefit when every promotion is pushed to be better. Constructive criticism isn't an attack, it's a sign that people care. The opposite of criticism isn't love, it's indifference. And I'd rather have fans care enough to demand better than shrugging it off and moving on. So, what should have happened? Let's play Booker for a moment. So, you're producing Raw before SummerSlam? How hard would it have been to include a Women's World Champion addressing her challenger? A tag team confrontation? A quick backstage interview setting up a match next week? A surprise return, maybe? A video package highlighting a rivalry? You wouldn't need to overhaul the show. You just need to remind viewers that these wrestlers exist and that their stories matter. Those few moments can make a tremendous difference in maintaining momentum. Instead, WWE, you pretty much killed any momentum any of the women's matches had. Accountability is not negativity, and sometimes fans confuse accountability with negativity. They are not the same thing. You can praise the Bloodline story, you can enjoy Seth Rollins, you can laugh at R-Truth, you can love the pacing of Raw, and you can still say the women's division deserved better this week. Those ideas, yes, guess what? They can coexist. Balanced criticism is healthier than blind praise or blind outrage. So, let's return to the original question. Where was the outrage? Not because WWE deserves to be dragged. Well, maybe. Not because Triple H deserves to be vilified. Well, maybe. Not because one episode defines the company. No, it doesn't. But because, my favorite word again, consistency matters. If we expect AEW to feature its women's division, we should expect the same from WWE. If we praise WWE when it showcases women, we should also question it when it does not. Professional wrestling has spent years proving that women's wrestling isn't a novelty or a sideshow. It's a core part of the product. Champions deserve television time. Contenders deserve storylines. Fans deserve, I'm going to say it again, consistency. Do I need to spell it out for you? So, the next time any promotion, AEW, WWE, TNA, New Japan, or anyone else goes on an entire flagship show without meaningful featuring half its roster, let's keep the same energy. And not because it's trendy, not because it fuels another pointless tribal war, but because holding every promotion to the same standard is how the industry improves. If you're going to criticize Tony Khan for it, then you need to criticize Triple H for it. If you're going to praise Triple H when he gets it right, then we need to praise Tony Khan when he gets it right. That's not being anti WWE and it's not being pro AEW. It's simply being pro wrestling. So, if you enjoyed today's discussion, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Did WWE deserve more criticism for this episode? Was this simply an isolated booking decision? Or does it point to a larger issue? And here's the biggest question of all. If Dynamite had aired with 0 women's matches and 0 women's segments, do you honestly believe the reaction would have been the same? I do not, personally. So, keep the debate respectful because good wrestling deserves honest conversation, not tribalism. So, until next time, thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves, enjoy your wrestling, and remember the best fans don't defend logos, they defend good wrestling. Make sure you can listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Also, like and subscribe to the Mid Podcast, and also subscribe to the Weekly Steel Chair so you can hear Lipsticks and Lariats, where 2 women debate wrestling. Oh, wait, 2 women on a wrestling show. Holy shit! You can find those links in the description below. And so, until next time, I will see all of you guys later.